Welcome to Valor and Virtue. I'm Jim Danielson. Today we have with us First Sergeant Tony Ford, United States Marine Corps retired. And we'd like to ask the First Sergeant to tell us a bit about yourself and what led you to join the Marine.
The opportunity, sir. I joined the Marine Corps in 1991. Originally, I was born and raised in Adrian, Michigan. I came from a split family. Parents got divorced and wanted to try to do something a little bit better with my life to protect that country that we all want.
Yeah. Wow. So it sounds like you had this idea. Well, I'm going to sort of get out and start doing something for myself, but I'm also going to give some time to the defense of my country.
Wanted to try to make my parents proud, even though they weren't together.
Oh my! So you went to Parris Island?
No, believe it or not, I flew from Michigan all the way on out to California, San Diego.
Is Michigan west of the Mississippi?
Michigan is kind of its own.
I see. Okay. So when you went to San Diego, and there's no fault in that. Did you have in mind that you wanted to be a career Marine?
Going to where they make male Marine. Didn't realize that I was going to try the first 4 years and see how well that worked. So once I ended up graduating boot camp, I ended up leaving and got to go on over to Camp Pendleton for a short stint of time and enjoy the mountains out there. Definite walks trying to become a machine.
Oh, really? Is that there's a school out there for that?
Do now at the School of Infantry that's out there, infantry training school at the time, to try to make Marines have the understanding, the basics, understanding of a rifleman, and then to become a machine gunner. So the recruiter asked me what I wanted it to be, and I told him what has the least life expectancy of war that was to be the most exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me that it would be a door gunner. Amazingly enough, did not understand why there was such a great laughter behind it. The next thing you know, I became an 0330 machine gunner. Did not get to fly around airplanes to be a door gunner at all.
Why not?
They trained their air wing personnel to be the door gunner, not the infantry. And then joining my first unit was amazingly enough where showed up there, and because of the fact that I was in better shape, they based it off of the physical fitness score. Sure, that my score was higher than the gauntlet came with. I was able to go to a walking unit as a grunt. And he asked about one that would ride because I didn't want to end up hard to get him in shape.
Oh, good heavens.
So one trying to work a little bit harder to try to get ahead of things. We're both the same size at the time. It was just that for some reason I was able to carry a weight a little bit better than he was.
Now, did you ever actually work as a machine gunner?
I did. The strange part was on graduating boot camp, somehow I ended up going to security forces before I could end up going to my first unit of 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines.
Security forces, forgive me, I don't know what they knew.
Security forces, we guarded special weapons. So those weapons that are classified that are used in different fashions in the military are stored at those locations. It could be for submarines, it could be for airplanes, that you pick.
That's interesting. So now, did you, when you're doing security at a facility like this, do you know what the weapon inside is?
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But obviously you're sworn to secrecy that you can't talk about things.
Right.
But as a young Marine, we always have a great sense of humor and find a way around things. So one of the locations that we were at, it was difficult to find a 3-leaf clover because most of them were 5-leaf clovers.
Oh.
As a young Marine, you don't really attach nothing exactly what that means. It's just very comical, or that's the rabbit that's stuck between chain link fence is about the size of a medium-sized dog. You just assume that
There's a lot of food there.
being brought up in Michigan, you've got large deer, but the rabbits are not that big. And since we were in different locations, didn't really know that maybe they had larger animals there, like deer in Michigan.
Yeah, were you ever doing security at night?
Security was 24/7.
Oh yeah, right, sure. So could you see the rabbits easier at night because they're glowing?
I can't really tell you that I ever saw any of them glowing.
That's okay.
The first time out there, you get to hear the war stories from obviously the larger people that are out there. When I say larger people, we had one guy that was 6'9".
Wow.
Was a very large gentleman that was not able to be a driver because he didn't fit within the space provided. He's enough the book, so we're driving Dragoons, what we had. He couldn't fit in the location for the driver's seat. He would always have to sit in the back.
Wow.
But he was a very large guy. One that you would definitely not want to upset, but had a very, very soft-spoken voice.
Oh yeah, I'll smile right up until I kill you, right?
Yes. He was one of those that definitely you would not forget.
Did he carry a rifle?
Oh, he carried a rifle. He carried a pistol. I carried all kinds of things.
Did it look like a rifle in his hand?
It did not like toys.
Yes, when you're that big, I mean, like, now, were you using scopes in those days or just iron sights?
Oh, those were all iron sights. This is the time frame that when, if you think computer-wise, there was one computer with a dot matrix printer in the office.
Oh, okay. All right, so
make a copy of this. You were writing in my hand unless you had the ability to have the carbon vehicle blow. So your pain check was line up in line to go ahead and get short dispersing.
Yeah, that was back when life was still good. Yeah, that's right. So, you didn't really do a whole lot of, I was going to ask you, is it fun to shoot a machine gun?
I loved shooting a machine gun. Even more than love shooting a machine gun, I loved teaching others how to shoot weapons.
Oh, good. So, when you're in boot camp, you go to the rifle range. There's like a machine gun range?
Is a machine gun range, depending upon where you end up going for unit-wise, and the ranges that they have that are available. But when you go out there, each different weapon has its max effective range that you end up going to the range. Obviously, you have that wonderful gunner that was out there that would tell you exactly what you could and could not do. When I say gunner, that's the Marine Corps burst and bomb gunner.
No.
Infantry weapon specialist for the grunts.
How do you get that job?
That is chosen by a select few that have served in the infantry for an extended period of time that request to basically put on that burden to be the commander's infantry weapon specialist to tell them how to best employ any weapon that the military is to offer. So just like you have for the commander, would have the sergeant major as the right hand, the left hand would be that gunner.
Yeah.
So administratively, it would be the sergeant major. Weapons deployment and tactics is that gunner.
That's interesting. Did you serve overseas?
I did not serve overseas. I deployed overseas.
Oh, that's interesting. I was using those terms interchangeably because having only served 4 years, I don't all of the language isn't clear to me. What's the difference between serving overseas and being deployed overseas?
Deployed, your home port, example, home location could be California, it could be North Carolina, and then you deploy to a location before deploy. Even like we've got Marines currently in Okinawa, Japan.
Right.
They're readily able to go to different locations depending on the needs of the world and where you best deploy. You could end up going on a unit deployment, floating on a boat or mute. Sure. The best thing that you'll end up hearing people talk about is that ACM mission, air contingency mission, the myth that never ends up happening, that you're preparing for the balloon to go up or be flagged for war to come on in, and it never ends up happening. We fell under that exact same umbrella. I was with 3rd Battalion 8th Marines. Our commander, General Berger now, Colonel Berger, we got the phone call, and I remember that to this day that we were just got back off of the air contingency mission. And amazingly enough, the next thing you know, I get a phone call from our company commander, and he says, you guys need to get back here because one of the platoon commanders was getting married in Georgia. So as all platoon sergeants and platoon commanders at the time, we ended up going to Georgia for his wedding. They called my flip phone at the time. It wasn't one of the old-fashioned Nokia Bricks, but it was a flip phone I had because he knew that I'd answered the phone. So I answered the phone and found out, you're being called back. Go tell the lieutenant that fortunately his wedding's going to have to wait, that we need you back because we're going to be leaving you to Haiti. So when the balloon went up, we were called to go to Haiti. I had to go break the news to the lieutenant. Amazingly enough, he decided to go ahead and wait until after the wedding to explain it to his now wife, as it was the best wedding gift that could ever be given to him by the commander. We all loaded back on up, came back on over, flew on out through Cherry Point to go to Haiti, which was something that hadn't happened. We heard that no one has ever been called up for an air contingency mission of leaving within a 24-hour notice. That was us.
What was happening in Haiti? Was it a earthquake?
The Port-au-Prince had been taken over.
Oh, really?
So history book-wise will end up showing that the Port-au-Prince was taken on over and NATO forces that have taken it back. Our battalion commander at the time that was getting ready to become the regimental commander had decided to go ahead and take us. So I am not a commander. I don't know the talks behind the doors, but amazingly enough, we got us there. And once we ended up going to Cherry Point, it was the most amazing thing that I've ever seen, where there's ammunition lined up on either side. And the dream of take whatever you think you'll need, everything from hand grenades to AT-4s to all lined on up. It was amazing. The nightmare came thereafter when the company first sergeant walks on over to the company gunny and says, I can't leave because of medical for my shoulder. So gunny, you've got to step up. The company gunny comes on over and does the little kick to me because he's a little 4'10" guy. And he goes, Tag, you're it. You're the company gunny.
Were you a gunnery sergeant at the time? Oh, wow.
So the next column that came on up was, he goes, you need your accountability of every single piece of ammunition that they took.
How do you do that?
It's a great question.
Does that mean you didn't,
No, we got full accountability, but it took some time, and we had to go back and collect up all of the frag grenades and all of the explosives that were not needed, realize that all of the non-lethal bullets and grenades that we came with, that they were not as prepared as they thought, because the tape around the grenades that had the little beans inside of it that would explode, the tape would fall off. So as you were walking, the bottom would fall off of your grenade and all pieces would go everywhere. So then you'd have to go and pick them back on up and try to find the infamous duct tape to take them back again. But it was a definite, true experience of going to Haiti. We learned how to use things that we never thought before, and you meet the strangest people, you find the strengths and weaknesses amongst the people that you work with. Just the simple question of asking, does anyone know how to operate any of this equipment here? So, found about a couple different guys that used to work on a farm, and we used to do this. Found one of the Marines that was able to end up working the machinery to pick up the 40-foot containers.
Okay.
They took 40-foot containers that would normally go on the shipping ships and the semis, and we built a perimeter around the entire outside of the location we were at. Then we ended up having to make locations that stacked up like Lincoln logs that were stacked on up living quarters for Marines to be protected also. Most strangest thing you've had. And then out of the woodwork, because everyone stinks, you find those fun people of, well, we found an old bathtub. Staff Sergeant, you mind if we go ahead and try to get this set on up so we can have hot water also, because we got a guy outside to do the hot water? Sure.
Nice.
The only problem is that they grounded the electricity to the piping. So as you stood in the shower and your silkies try to shower, you've got pulsating between anywhere between 120 to 240 volts of electricity. So as refreshing as the shower may have seemed, it was not.
Now, was there an occupying force in Port-au-Prince? Or
There was not. It was the Port-au-Prince. They had their local security that had decided to leave when it was starting to build around. So they just all left, burning piles of debris, garbage, trash, mosquitoes.
so you guys were there to restore order, or
To reestablish the Port-au-Prince. One of the units that was there was actually staying at the palace, which was nice. I got to see that later on into our visit that we ended up, and it was phenomenal. They even had a pool that was out back that, unfortunately, they were allowed to swim in from time to time, which became more like a large-sized bathtub for Marines.
Sure.
Yeah, so a pool over and turret on that side of it. But it was definitely an experience, to say the least.
how long were you there?
We were there for almost 4 months.
Wow, that's a long time.
And living on cots and enjoying things while we were there was amazing. And then obviously you've got CNN and the news and everything else that comes out and see how things are, and all of the high officials that come out to shake everyone's hand and say, if there's anything that you need, please let me know, to try to give me a coin. Unfortunately, I got a big butt chewing on that one because I said, I'll trade this coin for this amount of mosquito nets so that my Marines can sleep. Well, amazingly enough, in less than 4 hours, we had enough mosquito nets that were taken away from the guys that weren't out there.
Oh, interesting.
Amazing how things end up happening quickly.
But you got gnawed on for it?
Oh, I did. I did, because the fact that, unfortunately, there are chains that you end up going through and via clear request and will work with NATO forces and the Marines that came on the ground, since we had a full-bird colonel and they did not. He outranked him, so the chains to try to get simple things took the longest.
Well, we won't explore that terribly much. When you went back home, was the lieutenant still married?
The lieutenant was still married. He was extremely happy. His wife was overjoyed to see him and thought that this is exactly how the Marine Corps does for each and every single deployment. We got to hear about it for about the next 4 family days of her war story on how she got married and was not able to honeymoon. Unfortunately, they got into a little Mitsubishi Eclipse and drove from Georgia all the way back to North Carolina because he was so excited they wouldn't stop for an 8-hour trip from where they were at.
I would imagine that could be difficult for a lady.
I would assume so, especially when she was found out right after they got married, cut the cake, leaned on over, got a piece of cake, and then told her.
Yeah, see, that just doesn't quite, there's something about that doesn't line up with the way things ought to be.
They're still married to this day, but they seem to be a...
Oh, good. So that was a joint deployment, was it?
Not. Many of the different deployments that we went on led on up to being able to go to Haiti. We're even going on over to Okinawa, Japan, in which while we were there, we got to train in the jungles while we were doing all of that. Some of it was fun. Other times were not fun. Just like you'd see on the movies where you've got guys go run through the jungle and do the train. It's beautiful there. But it depends on the level of beauty that you're looking at. You've got snakes that are around there that could kill you. And unlike most people, if you see a waterfall, it's beautiful. You're hot, you might as well strip down and jump in it. Well, we found that was the pot, and you want to do it out Japan, not because of the fact that you get like fish or like that to bite you, but when it came out of the water, you found out that you had leeches. Oh my! All around your body. You had to have your buddy who was out there to try to help you to remove them. So you've got some great experiences, especially when you get to go to different places. Banana spiders, that their body is the size of your fist. They walk into.
Could have. Are they poisonous?
Like, yeah. It was just hilarious. Your biggest guy could have the tiniest little spider to still scream, but it bonds you together with all the experiences. So if you're out there just like you serving, the experiences you have amongst each other, it might be miserable when you're doing it.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm just like your brothers.
Right, right. Yeah. Were there bats there? How big were they?
It's a couple decent sized ones that I'd say were there. One of the ones I'm not going to mention his name, but our company Gunny at the time, he gave us a glorious cookout. Came and took our machine gun that we had and went on over to one of the signs and shot the sign up with the machine gun, created massive amounts of holes in it, and then had us remove the sign and put it over a pit because he had snared a couple boars.
Oh, my.
While we were out there. That's why I say I'm not going to mention who it was.
Sure.
But we were eating pork that night, which, looking back on it now, I'm sure had something in it that could have killed me. But being miserable eating MREs the whole entire time, it was definitely something to kind of get memory for.
So you had to gut it and skin it out and all that kind of stuff?
Listen to the guy, though, he was a big old Florida boy that told you that this was nothing like the Gators. So you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. If we dig a hole, put this stuff in there, everyone was in.
No, I bet. Did it taste like pork?
It just tasted amazing. We were the MREs. So if you're
yeah.
the MREs, the best part about that is
right. Right. Yeah. How long were you there?
Those were 6-month deployments. We had one that was a 9-month deployment.
So how long do you have to be gone for it to be, when I was in, they would call it a permanent change of station?
Oh, your PCS move.
Yeah.
For us, we were there temporary, so it was not listed that we we're going to be relocating to the location.
Right.
So we were just there for a short period of time and then rotated on out for units.
When did you become a gun researcher?
Amazing. While on the Haiti deployment, I found out that I had gotten selected for gunny. And I did not believe it at the time, just by the way it was presented to me. I got a phone call, son had gotten, where it was 17 distance 78. So I went on over it. I did spearhead the state vocal bot. What's your guys to think? I was like, I have no idea. What did your guys do? Because I have no idea. Because obviously we both screwed up and did something. So we walk on over. We had to pass by the pilots that obviously were enjoying the time in their hammocks that they had attached between a couple of trees. Sergeant Major calls us on in there and goes, I don't know how it is, but by the grace of God, you both got selected for promotion. And didn't believe him until we saw the unofficial list that he had. And said, you got to wait to tell your family if you get onto a sat phone to call them to let them know about it after it gets published. Then you can go ahead and do it. But you both are gunnies, so watch your noses. Don't screw on up. Otherwise, you're going to be staff sergeants forever. That should be getting out. Okay.
Now, when you're selected, is there a sort of a general period of time between that and the actual promotion?
Once you're selected, anytime over that next period of a year before the next board, you can be binned on, depending upon the number that you've been selected as.
Oh.
So you could end up going and be voted this month. Your number comes around 359, could be 2 months from now. Just depends upon how many they need for the rank worth of time and how many they actually have released. That way you get promoted. One crusty old sergeant major gets on up. 2 or 3 gunnies get promoted.
How does that work?
The higher the rank and the longer that they stay in, there's no room to...
Sure, right.
So once one of them move along, and it's time to go ahead and start promoting others to move up. Lots of people are getting out of the military at the time to move on to higher paying jobs.
Sure.
So a lot of people end up staying around because it's something that they've gotten used to, while other people staying around because of the fact that it's something that they want to and love for it.
Well, that makes sense. uh, yeah, does it ever happen? And this is probably the answer is going to be no. But does it ever happen that somebody might go to a master gunnery sergeant or a sergeant major and say, oh, "Okay, I mean, you've been sitting here in this position for a long time. Why don't you go find an easy chair as you retire?"
So we'll bring it back to like a school teacher type.
Right?
Would the school teacher go to the superintendent and say, I need you to move on so I can go ahead and take your job?
No.
A little bit different in the military. That master guns that you went and talked to and said, hey, it's time for you to move along and get on out, you've just now got on his or her bad side.
Yeah. See, which is not where you want to be.
Now, they could end up having the change of things that comes along there because now, congratulations, you're the prime candidate for duty during the holiday. We need somebody to take care of this working party. That's you.
I see.
So obviously, you volunteered for it.
Yeah, it's kind of like being banished to Michigan.
Well, there are worse places.
Yeah. I've heard. Yeah. So how long were you in the Marine Corps?
I was in the Marine Corps from 91 all the way to 2014. So
Good old laugh.
short period of time.
Wherever on the East Coast?
I have limits. I started on off at the West Coast.
Right.
And then requested, while I was teaching at Sergeant's Course in 29 Homes, a hot fill position to be filled immediately came up, which was the School of Infantry, East Coast, in which you would have the opportunity to lead, train, and mentor young Marines that have just graduated boot camp to try to help them transition to their next duty station by teaching them about whatever their job was going to be, if it was going to be an 0311 as infantry, if it was a machine gunner, a mortar. So I requested to end up moving from 29 Palms to North Carolina. So I came here in 1999.
Now, at infantry, how long is infantry school?
The current program of instruction that they have, I believe, right now is 52 days.
50 days. What is just like weapons and tactics or something like that?
Learn how to fine-tune the skills of your infantry that you have. So for the first 17 days, you're refamiliarizing them with anything and every type of weapon, formations, movements, throwing grenades. For us at the time, it was 17 to 21-hour days.
Wow.
Which was a nightmare. But they were short-handed, which is why they were requesting personnel account. And the main focus was to make sure that each and every single one of these Marines were fully trained on up before they would transition and move on to their unit. So a lot of these Marines, since it was in 99, what we trained them is what they took with the door.
Those same weapons?
And it's the same knowledge that was given to them. So we provide them a basis, and by the time that they get to their unit, they fine-tune those skills before they're deployed.
Did you go to infantry school?
I did. When I first joined at the infantry training school, it was on Camp Pendleton that I was saying before. This is where I went to.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
More swampy.
Here?
Oh, indeed.
Indeed. But you said you now is a machine gunner infantry?
Yes. Your machine gunner is infantry. I'm not familiar with what they currently have right now, what they do and don't have that they've eliminated from the infantry arsenal, but your normal traditional line company, or once they go out there and walk from point A to point B, as you could say, are the riflemen, that 0311, the 0331, which is that machine gunner, the 0341, which is a borderman, the 51, the anti-tank cantonmentman, with the smalls. And then you have a few sprinkled in there of the snipers that were in there for the staple camp, to include if you were able to come across the recon guys. But those are your normal infantry.
You retired in 2014. Now, we were talking with a master gunnery sergeant. In fact, you met him. I'll say it. And he was talking about a son. One of his sons was a sniper in the Marine Corps. And he said that the packs they carry, the equipment that they carry now in the combat is way more than, I served from 1976 to 1980. And we were taught about this thing called the field marching pack. And he said, no, we're way past that. What is it like?
That's a great question. We had quite a few different ones, but my favorite still falls back onto the mountain ruck, which you're familiar with. That one with the old lip frame that's on it.
Oh, yeah.
Attach anything and everything you wanted on there. It started off with, your normal Alice pack, which is a smaller version, but when you had to carry heavier weights, you went off and found a mountain ruck that was basically twice as much. The ones that they have now are ergonomically designed to be able to fit the person's body and back.
Oh, really?
When they're looking at them, they can adjust things from the top to the bottom to fit it correctly for them. Completely different than what you and I started with.
What do they weigh?
It depends on your load and what you're going for.
Oh, okay.
You've got it set. Depending upon where you're going, it might have a different set for it. So if you're going to a mountain environment, if you're going to a wood environment, if you're going to a cold environment, they have the ability to switch those different items on out. Just like the good old-fashioned weapons that you had. I'm sure, airwing-wise, you were trained up with 45.
I was platoon scribe. Yeah, 45 was a 45, but I didn't get to shoot it because I was guarding the gear while my fellow recruits were getting trained. I didn't throw the grenade either for that very reason.
Okay. Just like weapons change over a period of time, iron sights, they found that by using different optics, we can make them more effective. We can be able to teach those Marines and sailors on how to better shoot, how to better protect us, and how to better save our lives. So, back to your question, is it heavier? I'm sure it could be. It depends on what they're putting in it.
Yeah. I mean, this guy, I think this is really interesting because you think, it's you're outside. You're obviously moving. It's physically demanding, and yet you have all this weight that you're carrying, along with it.
Most of it's mental.
Sure.
So most of it's mental because of the fact that if you've got nothing to listen to, if you've got nothing to do, and you're just out walking with a heavy pack on, there's nature's out there you can listen to.
Sure.
But with your buddy and you're walking along and you look like you're about to fall over because you're dying, and he pulls on out a Jolly Rancher out of his pocket and offers it to you in a good conversation, you could end up going another 5-10 miles carrying that conversation on and laughing about how miserable you are. So the weight, you work up to it, more of a mental toughness. And throughout the time in the Marine Corps, every single thing that you end up doing, you can share that knowledge and story with someone else of what you have, because the women have Oprah, I've been told before, and men, you all have us. So when it comes time to, you're going through a rough time with your wife and you're getting divorced and everyone tells you to go on off and I would leave or I would do this and anything else, they're not in your shoes.
That is true.
I'll pray for you and figure on out what can be best. If I can help you in one way or another,
right,
let me know. But those that are telling you, leave her, they're not in your shoes.
Right.
Because it be the worst thing ever that she's cheating on you. That conversation with your buddy just on that little walk. Hey, is it worth sticking around? Is it worth fighting for? Is this the one? And a lot of times what happens is that throughout life, you grow apart because you're more focused on your work. And it happens in every single job, but you focus more on what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and becoming kind of a routine. You start to lose that relationship with your spouse. You start to fall away from your family. You find that work is more important because you're trying to do certain things to make work life better?
This might sound like a controversial question, but it's not. At least I don't think it is. And I've read, who knows if it's true, but I read that if you wanted to enlist in the Roman army way back in the day, you enlisted for a very long period of time and you were not allowed to be married. Do you think that's a good idea? Not allowed to be married.
I believe maybe that it's personal choice. If I was king for the day, every single person would have to serve in a force, a military force, for at least 4 years
Before getting married.
before being able to do much of that.
Oh, okay. All right.
You want free education? 4 years of service. You want to go ahead and get a further degree? 8 years of service. You want to become a professor? We need X amount. You still have that ability to use what you've learned. And seeing with the current military that we have and the ones that I've served with, so many different people waste that opportunity to try to share the knowledge that they have.
Yeah.
We've gone off and you've got 4 degrees. Okay. That's amazing. You spent how many years in the military? 20 years. You've never deployed ever? Nope. Ever went to war? Nope. Wow. Congratulations. Those are the ones that you sit and you look at and say, you don't have to deploy to go do those things, but where were you for those that were deploying? You're more focused on doing your stuff instead of helping everyone else. So I feel this spending 4 years in, have a time, being able to go off, get married after it, is a personal choice. There's no way to ever end up stopping it. But educating them before they end up deploying, because to take the focus away from their job, it happens. Unfortunately, many of our Marines that we have nowadays, they fall in love and get married before they've even been at their first duty station for 6 months.
Wow.
And I see that all.
So does it appear in their work like they're distracted?
Some do get distracted by it, and they don't focus, in which we have to sit them down, talk to them, and share life lessons. So the lessons that we've experienced or those that we came into contact with of what can we do. Amazingly, when you think about it, the more people that you end up talking to that's within your unit that's been around longer, they become more like a brother figure, sister figure, a father figure, a mother figure. Your commander might even be able to walk off and tell you stories about him, her, or what they did a long time ago. You look at them and you go, yeah, it's a little bit different nowadays.
Right, yeah.
One of the minds that I end up having, there's just some kids that you can't save. I say that you can't save because even trying to get a Marine math in Marine's book, when he's like, we're in love, it's my baby. How long have you known her for? We met 47 days ago. That's amazing. How far along is she in a plane? She's in her 3rd trimester.
That's not funny, but it is.
You have to be able to explain to them. You came from the far off reaches of the United States in the middle of nowhere to come here. You fell in love. As long as you end up having the true understanding that you may not biologically be that child, but be the best father figure that you possibly can, by all means. But to try to sit down and explain to that kid, math just doesn't add up, brother. I'm sorry.
Well, did he go to public school?
Well, I could not tell you. We didn't have the resumes at the time for them. We just had to fill out the wonderful packet to prepare them to go deploy.
Okay. Talking about those heavy packs, I can't, they just keep sticking with me. Obviously, doing that, you're going to get physically tougher. But then you're talking about these conversations that you have that kind of almost make the weight easy to bear. So you do get more mentally tough.
You do. Even though your body ends up breaking down, you become more mentally tough when you're doing things.
Yeah.
Have you ever ran a long run before?
Oh, yeah.
So on the long runs, when you first go over there and you've got nothing to do, nothing to think about, your brain is trying to process. Everything's going on in your life right now. But when you talk to someone else turning beside you, simple conversation.
Yeah, right.
Even like with when we run formation, you're chanting something.
Yeah.
But when you're talking with someone else, the weight kind of goes away to a point. Your body is tougher than you think it is, because once you end up stopping, all right, everyone face up more, sit on your back, take your boots off, go ahead and bury your feet on, change your socks, all those things. And as we walk along and look at them, you can see that it's tearing their boots, it's tearing their feet, destroying them. But what is the purpose for it? Everything that they're training for is to go to war, so that you know when you go there, you can do this. I've done harder hiking. One of the worst but best hikes that we ever went on was we trained in mop gear.
Hey, what?
Gas masks with the engines for chemical warfare. We learned to hike with it. By far the worst hike that we've ever ended up having.
What time of year was it?
It was August.
Oh, wow.
So it was a little bit warm, but we left. I can't remember if it was the night before we left or the night or the morning out we left. We left. All lined on up. We step on off. Before we even reached the first stopping point, ran from the back up to the front. Everyone was pulling their filters on off and flinging them all over the place, and half of them had ripped off. Get up in front and let the commander know. Sir. Screaming at the top of your lungs so you hear you. Finally end up ripping my gas mask off. You're dead. Lay down on the ground. I'm just letting you know there's no one else walking behind you. So, those little things of the mental toughness, it's something we hadn't done before that they wanted to try to do. But once we did do it, it proved that it's something we need.
Oh, sure, yeah. Did you have sweat just coming down your face that you couldn't wipe away?
It wasn't just sweat, it was a glaze over your entire body. Everything was so, wow. There were people that were throwing up inside their gas masks. People that ended up saying F this and just ripped their stuff off or moved to the side, were carrying them and dragging things. It was miserable. But for the four of us that made it out of our entire battalion, it was hilarious, because each of us that were walking along that were there had the guidons.
Oh, really?
That we would not let.
Yeah, sure.
You can't.
Right.
It's one of those things. It's not like you're training for a McCress or a McCree, in which you're testing the abilities of an infantry unit. Those are all based upon if a person falls on out, or a weapon falls on out, or a portable weapon system falls on out, points you're taking away and deducted. The old evaluation card, just like old school. But with height, completely different. While you're out there doing gas mask-wise, nobody wanted it. Except it was a great idea that somehow made it to the commander saying, I think this would be a phenomenal idea. But if you've ever read how shit happens, excuse me for saying that, you ever read how shit happens, the guy at the bottom that's doing the work says that this is a horrible planet never to make anything, but by the time that it makes it to the commander, it'll promote growth. And it's solid as the plan. And those are the type of things that we have to remember when you're serving.
Right, yeah.
So to kind of take away the politicalness behind it, could the pack get heavier? Sure it could. Can the pack withstand it? Sure it could. Or you have to carry extra zip ties? Maybe. But everyone, even while you're hiking or for a walk, you're going to take duct tape, you're going to take electrical tape. Those quick repairs, because the worst thing you need to happen is your gear gives up.
Right.
You've put too much weight on it, they can't take.
Got it. What does a first sergeant do?
A first sergeant handles all of the administrative burdens that are brought upon the command. I say burdens because that's about 90% of the problems that they deal with. Their job is to make sure for the purpose of formations, everyone is doing what they're supposed to. in line. They handle all the administrative and pay issues, movements. If you want to move from base to base, want dependency add. The bad part about it is that they also too handle all those infractions that fell against something for the military. So Marine Corps says we're supposed to be at a certain place at a certain time, and you were charged with not being there. They're the ones that facilitate correcting that so it doesn't happen anymore.
Now, would that include sort of like writing somebody up so that they've got to go before the commander?
Fortunately, yes. That would, well, I consider to be a leadership failure.
On whose part? On First Sergeant's part? Yeah.
Because of the fact that I was not able to correct it to the point that I had to stand in front of a man or a woman to reduce them in rank, to take away money from them and their family. There was nothing that I could have done. There are situations that you do have that, fortunately, you can't change it. There's just nothing you could possibly ever imagine in your entire life that could have prepared you for it. The simple one of like, you failed to show up on work on time. Why did you fail to show up? Okay, well, you're going to get an extra duty because of it. You owe me X amount of hours. Or should I go off and radio on up in front of the boss and say, a half month pay for 2 months because you were late, because your car broke down, because you failed to go off and get the tire fixed your wife already told you about, but you were extremely tired. There's more to the story when it comes to every single situation. The ones that you can't prepare for, the young Marine while I was up serving in the basic school at TVS, just certain things you could not imagine. And I was riding into work at the time at 4:30 in the morning on a mountain bike, riding the trails, heading into work. Phone rings. I came out of the things. I'm on 45-degree climb up a hill, so I ended up stopping finally, so it rings again. Well, come to find out, one of our bus drivers had picked up a bunch of lieutenants, transported them on out to the FBI Academy. Well, unfortunately, he was drunk from the night prior. He checked his bus out and picked up all the lieutenants and then drove into the front gate of the FBI Academy and smacked the bus into it. Those are type of things that, unfortunately, the checks and balances in between there was nothing that I could have ended up doing. But
so he's cooked.
Fortunately, he was cooked. There's certain things that you can't end up doing.
Right.
But then there are also 2 times when you come across someone and you find that strange anomaly that when the commander speaks, if he or she is interested, you're fascinated. But when they say something, if you clean up your act and you come back within a year or 2 years, I will make that NJP that you were found guilty of go away for the minor infraction it was. I always thought it was a myth. I had one Marine, when I checked him up to the basic school, that was charged for driving along the influence. Swore up and down after reading through the packet before I even checked in there that he was innocent, but innocent the whole time, but was found guilty. He walked up to the back gate, was the only person that was walking up to the back gate. After the vehicle pulls on up, he walks on up, was drunk, they charged him, he was found guilty in the JP.
Now he was drunk but not driving.
Well, that was his story.
Okay, right.
But all the information provided said that he was there by himself. After working with the Marine, built rapport with him, seeing on how great of a person that he was and how obviously he recovered from that incident, turns around, puts him on up for merit promotion, kept losing every time because obviously he was previously reduced in rank.
Wow.
Well, finally ended up going over and talking to the commander and saying, sir, we've put him on up for 3 separate boards. From what I have seen, he is completely turned all around. He said, First Sergeant, go ahead and do the paperwork then if you feel that strongly about it, and I'll make the NJP go away. That sounds phenomenal. I know why people call it a myth. The amount of paperwork and administrative nightmare that it took to get that to happen.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, was it possible to get the reduction in rank retroactively reversed?
We were able to not only get it reversed, he was also a corporal at the time, but he was selected for the rank of sergeant. So after getting everything taken and expunged from his record, then it went through the process of promotions and remedial promotions. So over a matter of 6.5 months from the time that we started, that he was still a corporal, he had been promoted to staff sergeant during that 6.5 month time frame, which was a nightmare. And then after it was all said and done, talking to the young Marine about re-enlisting, he said, honestly, First Sergeant, I appreciate everything you've done for me, but everyone else didn't believe me at the time. I'm getting out. So we lost someone because they didn't believe him. The behind the scenes of his story, his buddy that had a pregnant wife, they went off celebrating. It was his car, drove to the gate. His buddy walked back home, but his buddy's the one that drove to the back gate, not him. He didn't want to get his buddy in trouble. So he said, yeah, it was my car. I was alone. No, I wasn't driving. Didn't have the car either. He just did, sir. To his fun deal, but he protected his buddy. That brotherhood for that. I had to meet the guy also too, just for a second. Great kid. He's like, yeah, he goes, as long as you don't try to charge me First Sergeant for that DUI that I could have possibly got at that point in time frame, yeah, it was me. But if you try to call it, put it up on the record, I wasn't out there. What you're talking about.
Interestingly, I mean, interesting is he told you the truth.
Because 3 simple rules. Don't lie to me, don't steal from me, and don't BS me. I'll be there for you, regardless if you're getting promoted or to go off on the man. And those were rules to live by. It didn't matter what it was, as long as you followed those 3 simple rules.
Coach, so this is our last question as we're wrapping it up. It's been an interesting conversation. Certainly for somebody like me, and I'm sure there are viewers who will see this who are not as experienced with the Marine Corps as you, and to hear this sort of discussion is, really interesting. But you were on active duty for all those years. How would you? This is sort of talking about growth. We should grow all through our lives. This is something that, whether you're in the military or not, we're Americans, we should have certain things in common, like a spirit of independence and loyalty. And how did being a Marine help make you who you are?
Being a Marine took me from being what I thought was a man, being a father, to being a father, to believing in something besides myself, to realizing that you can't do everything alone.
Correct.
And once you do find what you're looking for, don't let it go. Say, ask for forgiveness.
Right, that's important.
Repent for your sins.
Even more.
The weight of asking that person, even though it was so long ago, hey, I'm sorry that I did this.
Right.
Most friends do that before going to war and not us coming back. That burden that's been lifted off your shoulders of everything you've built up your entire life allows that growth for you and makes you a better person. You can walk and live each day as if there's no tomorrow.
Right.
You can walk in the church with your family, sing, and truly be there instead of hiding behind the check and balances of, I went to church, I did this, I tithed, I did that, and genuinely live your life and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And the Marine Corps, it did that for me. There were some hard times, of course, a lot of hard times. There's times that change you in a moment's notice of what somebody else wound up saying. As simple as walking past someone saying good morning, and many of us are guilty. And you hey, how you doing? And you keep walking. Stop sometime. Listen to how they respond. It might be the difference between life and death one.
Right.
Those reactions that they have, going off and getting bitter and killing your family, but you didn't even know it because they were drinking and driving, trying to drown their sorrow.
Sure. Right. Yeah, that's really excellent advice, and it's and it sort of it wraps around this thing of a tradition of people together in a way of life. St. Augustine famously said that a culture requires people who love the same things.
We may not all love the same exact thing, but those shared bonds and experiences we do end up having are that bond.
Right, right.
You and I could pass in the street, never know each other, but by knowing that you served, that brotherhood is still there.
Right.
You call and ask for something, we're still a brother in arms, regardless of what service that you are in. We're there for you, just like the Navy corpsman at dock, right? Qualified Marine, but they're giving you the mandate, they're giving you that oath for sure.
Yeah. What a great conversation. First Sergeant Ford, we thank you very much.